Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at race number 9 at Prairie Meadows on a super card on Saturday. The Grade 3 Prairie Meadows Cornhusker Handicap at a mile and an eighth is usually a very strong race. This year's edition, no exception. Let's take a look at this field. Again, a mile and an eighth on the dirt. We have a big full field. It's a competitive group. We've got Millionaire, Red Route 1, 5-2 on the morning line. This guy needs a little bit of pace. He usually kicks very strongly in the stretch, and he's coming out of some strong races.
He is, and you look at his last, say, efforts 2 and 3 starts back. Those are the ones to key on. The Pimlico Special, I thought, was just sort of an even performance when it was all said and done. But we know how productive it has been. Pyrenees has run well. Kings Barnes, the runner-up, came back to win next time out. So, I don't want to read into that too much. But the issue is he has that late running style, and he needs the pace help, and that's why you look at his record. He's a 4-time winner in his career, and I feel like it's gotten him into trouble. I think looking at his race at Remington Park last year, he probably should have gotten the job done, but it just has to do with his running style. So at 5-2 on the morning line in a big field with 11 runners total, I personally think maybe you want to look elsewhere.
The good news for Red Route 1 might be the pace scenario. We talk about how he needs some pace. There it is. Red bar, fast pace. Red Route 1 has the LP flag, fastest time form US late pace rating. Unload the 3, Velocitor the 4. These horses have good early speed. Unload is stretching out off of a mile race at Lone Star where he went gate to wire. I think he's going to the top.
I think he has to, and I think that's when his best races have been, right? And you can see the race 2 back. Maybe you can make an excuse for it, a mile and eighth over the mud at Oaklawn. He was chasing the pace in that spot, and I wonder if that worked against him a little bit, knowing that the winner was on the lead. And we know that sometimes you're in the wrong spot when you're chasing the pace like that. But you go down the page, he's got a lot of early foot. Velocitor really doesn't want to be further back than maybe a length or two off that pace early on. And then you have horses towards the outside that may be vying for a good position early on, and they like to be close enough to it that they're going to have to kind of move off the gate.
I won't be surprised if the one Mine That Star shows a little bit of speed, breaking from the inside post. He was on the lead in the local prep for the Cornhusker. This race, the Rasmussen, going a mile and a 16th. Mine That Star is getting tired right now in third. Coming on the outside is Velocitor. Down on the inside is Ain't Life Grand. Ain't Life Grand for a brief second looked like he got the jump after sneaking through on the inside, but Velocitor shrugs him away.
Yeah, and Velocity certainly ends up being the best here, and you can see he was being asked a little bit, but I don't think he was being fully asked there in the stretch. But Mine That Star, that was a good performance. You look at this horse, he's a 10-time winner in his career, but as of late, he's getting a lot of those minor shares. But they've traveled him sort of everywhere, like a lot of these horses in here, Sunland, Lone Star, Prairie Meadows. To me, with the inside draw, it's going to be curious. Obviously, he can save a lot of ground, and around 2 turns, he can get it into a good position. And I think for him, his ideal trip is probably a couple of lengths off the pace, and he'll try to make a late run. But when you look at the performance last time out, 2 others in here, they just had a better turn of foot, which maybe works against him.
Escapologist is coming into this race in very good form off of a win in an allowance event at Oaklawn Park at the end of March. Let's watch Escapologist, and I thought he did some good things in this race. It's not like this pace is super fast. You can see by the fractions they went almost 49 seconds, and Escapologist is going to be able to sneak on through along the inside and get up in the shadow of the wire. It was a game performance for the Kenny McPeak trained son of Good Magic, and maybe he's just coming into his own at the right time, although he needs to prove himself against the graded ranks.
Yes, he does. And the big question, I think, for him, too, is we haven't seen him since this race. It was back at the end of March at Oaklawn Park. There was still a couple of months of racing left there. They didn't close until, I think, Kentucky Derby weekend in May. So to me, it's a little bit of a concern we haven't seen him, but he did have a tough campaign. You can see instead of having part of the winter off, he had part of the spring off, and sort of maybe a similar circumstances. Last year, we saw him till May. We didn't see him back till August, and maybe they just wanted to give him some time. But I thought it was a nice way for him to kind of conclude that meet at Oaklawn Park. And for him, his races, all but one, were quite good. For him, though, as well, he needs some pace to run at. He's a deep closer.
20-1 on the morning line for the number 3 Unload, going out for Hall of Famer Steve Asmussen. And this guy has won his last 2 fast dirt races by open lengths, including a score at Lone Star Park and a 2 life allowance, a race where he beat a couple of next out winners. Now, he controlled the pace that day. He's likely going to face more pressure, a faster race flow, and tougher horses, but he's a well-bred, well-connected horse with upside.
He is. And I think that's a good thing that you point out, that they're probably going to have more pace pressure on him. And they're probably going to go maybe a little bit quicker than they did last time out. It very even when you look at it all said and done, 24-1, 48 to the half. Just kind of a horse of his caliber that he's shown at that point should be able to go to those fractions on the front end. And he was able to draw clear in there. We can see in the past, if you look at, say, I know it's a different surface, but Turfway Park, where he had a little bit more pressure, he surrendered late. Still a good performance, third beaten by a length, but I'm curious to see what happens if he doesn't make the lead, if someone really decides to go for it, what sort of trip he's able to work out from there. But, he's trending in the right direction. He's taken some step forwards, and nice to see him have another win coming into this race, but he'll certainly be a price.
Here's one of your favorites, Ashley, the 4 Velocitor Canadian Classic winner. He won the Prince of Wales at Fort Erie last year over a sloppy track, and he looked good doing it. It seems like he's found a home on dirt here in the States. He's been managed very well. They found a good spot at Fauner Park for him 2 starts back to get a win. And then he scored in the Rasmussen, the race we saw, where he was up close to the pace. He was briefly passed, and then he just went right by Ain't Life Grand, who is a legitimately good horse, especially on this surface. He's going to be sitting just off the pace. He figures right there when they turn for home.
And I love that he was able to win the Prince of Wales. They gave him 2 other tries on the turf and the synthetic, and his connections, who have both horses with Kevin Attard in Canada and Gary in the States, decided, I think we need dirt. And now he has the opportunity to race on that surface against stakes competition. And you can't knock him winning 3 for his last 4. I think his forward running style, where no, he's not on the lead early, but he likes to be sitting off of it, has worked out very well for him. And the figures that he's producing, the sort of low to mid 90 figures, are very competitive, especially in a field like this. And you wonder, compared to some others in here that'll have a lot of work to do early or sort of need the lead types, can he get the right setup in here? I think it's very possible.
Red Route 1 has all the fast races, the company lines, the career earnings. He finished 4th in the Pimlico Special, a race where he just didn't get the right race flow. The pace wasn't very fast, and the horses that you see in the company line speak for themselves. Kings Barnes and Pyrenees came back to run 1-2 in the Stephen Foster last week. Now, I've never been a big fan of Red Route 1 simply because I just don't like horses with his running style, and he's not a big fan of mine because he almost killed me in the paddock before the Pimlico Special when he went crazy and kicked a wall, and I was about 2 feet away from him.
All right. So you have your reasons. I won't argue with your reasons here. I have my reasons. I have endorsed him and I have bet on him many a times, and it just is not the days that he's won. And I was there when he won the New Orleans Classic, and guess what? I did not back him on that day. So I agree with what you said, though. His running style, it is probably the thing that gets him in the most trouble. And when you look at him and you thought about Preakness last year and then the Belmont, he was the horse that if, the pace was just, I don't know, fair, we said, well, he's got the stamina, he's going to close late. It doesn't always happen for him, and a lot is because of that pace. And he did get the right setup at the mile and an 1/8 trip. So maybe it does work for him. We talked about it in the time forth pace projections, and you said maybe he does get the right setup. Maybe he does, but at 5-2 and knowing how many times it looks like he might get the right setup and he doesn't, I think he's vulnerable at 5-2 on the morning line.
Brad Cox has always treated the number 6 Hit Show like a good horse after he won the Withers at this distance. In only his 4th lifetime start last year, he ran him in races like the Derby and the Belmont and the Jim Dandy. And I like that he gave him plenty of time off over the winter to mature, and he found just the perfect spot for him off the layoff. A nice allowance race where he was favored. He won comfortably, and he just seems like one of those 4-year-olds that could take a big step forward and maybe make a dent in the handicap division this year.
I like the fact, too, that you said they put him in those tough spots, and after one tough spot came another. And I guess the only time that didn't happen is technically the Oklahoma Derby. And he went off favored there, and he was towards the back of the pack early on, and he made up some ground, just 6th best in there. So I love that he had plenty of time off, like you said, and he came back in a big way, in a good way. He was favored at an event, but to see him now, he's training well since then. You have to think that because they've given him the time, he's been able to get another win under his belt, that he's doing everything right coming into this race.
Michael Maker sends out the 7 Guntown off a close but no cigar effort when entered for the $80,000 claiming option at Churchill Downs over this distance. He's another horse that needs a little bit of pace in front of him, and while he might get that pace, I'm not sure he's as good of a closer as Red Route 1. At least he'll be a better price.
He'll certainly be a better price. Like you said, I think I have reservations knowing that he's 0 for 4 at the distance. He's been close, but there's other horses. Speed Bias has beat him. And I think if you look at that performance at Churchill, there's a better case to be made for speed bias, maybe than Guntown in this spot. And his wins, I just think, have been against lesser competition as you go down the page, and they're kind of spaced out here and there. I mean, when you go to the win two back, his second to last win was against $35,000 claimers. I just think it's a different ball game. And his races in New York are the ones to me that usually stand out. And this is just going to be different for him.
A lot of folks are going to be rooting for the 8, Ain't Life Grand. He's an Iowa bred. He's won 7 times over this surface, including the Iowa Derby back in 2022. He was a good third in this race as the beaten favorite last year. I think some folks are going to also question his form because he was beaten as the favorite last time out. I'm not sure he loved blinkers, and he's going to get the blinkers back off here. He threw an absolute fit in the gate before his last race, and maybe that took some of the starch out of him.
Maybe it did, and the pace was pretty slow in that race, even though when you kind of look at how it played out, it was also just maybe how things worked out for him. You talked about the blinkers. They're going to come off. I don't mind that move for him. And to me, he obviously loves it at Prairie Meadows. It's where his best races have been. He has one other win on the road. And when I look at him fresh off that little bit of a layoff, I thought his first effort back to the races at Oaklawn Park was a decent race at the mile distance. His next two, though, left some things to be desired. So at least coming into this race, he was able to take a step forward. Although, as you mentioned, he took some respect and was beaten.
Despite the fact that the number 9 trademark is a millionaire, won the prestigious Grade 2 Clark last year at Churchill Downs, beating a good horse like First Mission, he never seems to take any money in any of his races. He was 4th last time out in the Blame at Churchill Downs over this distance. The runner-up came back to win the Hanshin Cup there with a 97 buyer. He's faced good company. Sometimes he's a little bit of an in-and-outer, but at a price, you can certainly find worse long shots. He's also cross-entered at Horseshoe Indianapolis.
Yeah, you certainly could. And I think the thing with him is his running style sometimes has just worked out so well for him. Even when he was beating the Lucas Classic, I thought it was a really good effort. When he was able to win the Clark, loved the trip that he got. It just is kind of a hit or miss thing with him. Sometimes he fires a good race, sometimes he doesn't. And we've only seen him 3 times this year. And after that poor showing in the Pegasus World Cup, they put him back on the bench. They regrouped. Maybe the track played a little bit into it. He just didn't have anything left to offer in that race. And he took somewhat of a step forward in the Blame. It's nice to see the runner-up came back to win next time out. But I could see you either really like him for a reason here or you just have to pass on him.
Nice to see that the 10 Heroic Move has a good race over this track. He was 3rd in last year's Iowa Derby, and he's coming off a sharp win in the Grade 3 Steve Sexton Mile this race at Lone Star Park, where he rallies from off of the pace, and he's going to grind these rivals down going a mile in the manner where maybe a 1 1/8 is going to be good for him. I think Robertino Diodoro thought so last year when he shipped him all the way out to Western Canada and stretched him out in distance. Heroic Move does have some figures that make him competitive, and he's obviously sharp.
He does, and I thought that was a really nice performance from him. I know it was going shorter, but he was able to sit off an honest pace in there and got up in time. So to me, I don't think the distance really should be an issue. He is 0 for 2 at the distance, but races on different tracks and earlier in his career, and even his race 2 back, I thought that group was okay at Oaklawn Park, and you can see they've just kind of picked and chose their spots with him. His win at Oaklawn, 4 starts back, a career best number of a 99 would certainly put him in the mix. And he was just simply much the best in that spot. And you wonder, did it take a little bit out of him? Maybe that's why he didn't fire next time out. But he's 5-1 on the morning line. And I don't know, compared to some others in here, I think there's some better prices if you're looking for them, but I can see why someone would like him in this race.
Poor speed bias has taken some tough beats in his career. I still don't know how he dropped that photo in the Pimlico Special last year behind the Inform Rattle and Roll, and he just missed in the Fayette that fall at Keeneland. Ron Moquette brought him back as a gelding last time out, and speed bias, lo and behold, got the job done, and he was pretty game in doing it over Guntown. But now he steps up in class. He likes to be forwardly placed in a race where the pace might work against him, and he's going to probably work hard from a tough outside post.
I like that his win last time out, he wasn't on the lead or sitting in second. He was a little further back, and I think that's going to be a big thing for him with the outside post. If he can get a trip like that once again, I think he's a major player here. Even at 15-1 on the morning line, I would give him a shot. And he was kind of one of the price horses I was maybe alluding to, at least liking underneath. And his Temperance Hill performance, all in all, was not bad. A Classic Causeway tried to steal it on the front end. Mask Parade has always been a horse that loves those sort of longer races. And it was going 1.5 miles. They took a shot with it, maybe because they thought he would be forwardly placed and be able to get a share. And he was quite forward and he was able to do so. So I love that he had the time off. I like the way that he won last time out. And I think if Rafael Bejarano, who's been aboard him a handful of times in the past, can get a similar trip, it might work well for him in the Cornhusker.
Well, let's take a look at our top picks for the Cornhusker. It looks like a super betting race. Hit Show really looked good off the layoff. I have a feeling he might have the most long-term potential of any horse in this race, and maybe he'll go off a playable price because Red Route 1 always seems to take some attention.
I don't know. I have a feeling he might go off favored over Red Route 1. We can make a bet here if that's going to be our bet here, Dan.
Wow,
I just
you
think,
got it.
okay, our bets are on. I just think his performance last time out, I didn't want to necessarily use the 3-1 shot on the morning line, but I just like the way that he won. He seemed that he was able to settle early and make that late run was much the best. But you can see my runner-up. I told you before we recorded this, I really wanted to use Velociter on top. And yes, I'm a little biased, but I love that they got him on the dirt now, and he's really showing him his true colors. And I can understand why you like him in this spot.
Yeah, I'm going back to the horses coming out of the local prep. I like Velociter's tactical speed. He seems to love the dirt, and obviously he likes the track. And I just think the blinkers off for Ain't Life Grand is going to help him a lot in this race. He seems to have more of a versatile running style. He's got to be a price. 4, 8, 10, 5 for me, 6, 4, 5, 11 for Ashley. Nice matchup between Red Route 1, Hit Show, and a very strong supporting cast in the Cornhusker.